could be viable as one-time funds that come in. And there's continued funding that goes on that I've articulated there. The next point on the enterprise zones, certainly I think I wouldn't suggest that necessarily eliminate the enterprise zones. I think that has been a good tool for local jurisdictions to be able to work with private companies to the tune of about $129 million. I do think that though that there might be, this would be one of those private-public partnerships, and maybe Rick could speak to it better than I could, but because Oregon has so many data centers, and it looks like because of the things that we have here in Oregon, governments at all jurisdictions have need for data storage. So, you know, potentially you could enter into discussions with those data centers to say, as a trade-off and part of that agreement that you're going to do, hey, we need you to store some of our data, which then would free up not only those costs and expenses for that data, but perhaps additional costs. So again, something worth looking at. It would be a creative concept between private and public sector, and you know, I think those companies that are in Oregon are pretty good at what they do as it relates to data collection, and maybe that makes sense. Natural resource, I think Corey touched one other timber. There's a whole pretty good report on that. I'm not going to waste the time on that. It's in the document. One thing that I also learned, extractive industries might be a potential, particularly for some of the counties. Extractive industries are gold and silver aggregate. There's even some other unique minerals that Oregon has. There might be some potential there. Certainly didn't go into great detail on that, but that was one area, you know, that we hadn't necessarily delved into. We had talked a little bit about timber and water, but there might be some opportunities with extractive industries, but certainly we take a little more research and effort on that. And then finally on water, specifically from a local government standpoint, which would include special districts, some of the things that I learned is municipal water supply, while they only have about 6% of the stream use, they make up and basically provide water for 66% of all the population. So in that, one of the things that I learned is, one, municipal water supplies don't have that same notion of if you don't use it, you lose it. They don't have that. And the reason for that is they have to really project out a 20-50 year, try to figure out what the demands are, a growing population, some of those kind of things. And as Corey mentioned, certainly while we're very fortunate here in Oregon to have reasonably good water, it is a finite commodity and something. So I would concur with what Corey found in hers, but it's specific to local jurisdictions. I think it gets difficult to try to put into that extra supply and whether there's a market value for that. While there's been a few identified trading of water rights recently, I think it's still pretty early market, and the concept that Corey does, that she brought forward, probably makes more sense than trying to delve any farther, deeper into it, at least from a local jurisdiction standpoint. So that's what I have, Mr. Chair.